It was supposed to be just a casual Sunday dinner. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and my mother's overly sweet iced tea. The kind of meal where the food's warm, but the conversation leaves you cold. I was halfway through my plate when Dad set his fork down, looked right at me, and said, "So, your brother will move into your apartment next week. Makes the most sense, doesn't it?" I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure I'd heard him correctly. "Wait, what?" I asked, forcing a small laugh like maybe it was a weird joke. Mom waved her hand, brushing it off like I was being dramatic. "Well, sweetheart, he's just going through a rough patch. It's not like you're really using that apartment anyway." I blinked. "I live there." She smiled, that kind of smile that always carried more sugar than sincerity. Yes, but you're barely home. Always working or staying with your little friend. Besides, it's your brother. He needs it more." My brother, Mark, sat across the table, smirking like he already had the keys in his hand. "I'll keep it clean," he said, chuckling. "Family helps family," Dad added, as if that closed the discussion. "That's what this is all about." The table laughed. All of them. Like it was this sweet, selfless, hilarious moment. But I just stared at my plate, suddenly nauseous. I felt myself shrinking in that chair, as if my years of hard work, late-night side hustles, skipped meals, and every dollar I'd saved to earn that apartment were being scraped off the plate and tossed in the trash. They hadn't asked. They didn't discuss. They decided. For me. I wanted to scream, cry, flip the table. But I didn't. I just sat there, quiet, nodding like I understood. But inside, I was unraveling and rebuilding all at once. Because they didn't realize it, but something shifted in me that night. Something permanent. I smiled. It was small, polite, but distant. And that was the last time they ever assumed my silence meant yes. They thought the apartment was just a space for walls and a roof I could spare. But they didn't see what it really was. They never saw the nights I walked home in the dark after a double shift at the cafe, my feet aching and fingers raw from handling hot dishes. Or the mornings I woke up before dawn to clock in at the reception desk of that rundown motel, pretending to smile at strangers while my own life felt like it was barely stitched together. They never noticed how I skipped birthday dinners and friend getaways, how I said no to vacations, concerts, and even new shoes because I was saving every dime I could. I remember sitting at my tiny desk, surrounded by unpaid bills, a cracked laptop screen, and a candle because the power had gone out. I made spreadsheets for fun, just to feel like I had some control. I clipped coupons, downloaded every cashback app, and lived on instant noodles and black coffee. Not because I didn't want more, but because I knew exactly what I was building toward. That apartment wasn't a gift. It was a war I won, inch by inch. When I signed that lease, when I held the keys in my hands for the first time, I didn't cry out of joy. I cried because I had made it. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't know anyone. I had something that was truly mine. It was more than a place to sleep. It was proof that I could stand on my own, even if no one ever clapped for me. But no one in my family ever asked how I got that apartment. They just saw the outcome. Not the sacrifice. Not the exhaustion. Not the breakdowns at 2 a.m. when I didn't think I'd make rent, or the skip meals, or the way I taught myself to fix the broken heater because I couldn't afford a repair guy. So when they said, "Mark will move in," like it was just a favor, like I could afford to share the one thing I'd fought for with bloody fingers and sleepless nights, it didn't just hurt. It burned. Because in that moment, it was clear my sweat, my struggle, my silence, none of it ever counted. Not to them. To them, I was just the one who always made it work. Well, I had. And now I was done making it work for them. I didn't slam my fork down. I didn't throw a fit or cry or scream, "How dare you?" like I probably would have a year ago. I just kept chewing, nodding slightly like I understood. Like I agreed. That was the first moment I realized something had shifted inside me. They took my silence as submission, again. That same old role I'd always played. The agreeable daughter, the helper, the fixer, the one who didn't make waves. But what they didn't know was this time, I wasn't agreeing. I was calculating. I listened to them map out my apartment like it was already theirs. My brother casually asked if I had time to clear out his new room. Mom reminded me to leave the good coffee maker, since he really needed it, and he'd be stressed with the move. Dad was already looking into parking permits. Their voices droned on like background noise, but in my head a different rhythm had started playing, a steady, focused beat. I wasn't the daughter anymore, not in the way they had defined me. I was something else now, someone who was awake. They thought they could carve up my life and rearrange it around their wants, and I'd just adjust, like I always did. That night, though, something broke quietly. But it wasn't a fracture. It was a release. I realized they didn't see me. Not really. They saw what I could offer. And once I had nothing more to give, or worse, something they wanted, they didn't hesitate to take it. That night, after dinner, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared out the window, watching headlights blur across the street. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was clear. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a passenger in my own life. I was driving now. I didn't pack in panic. I didn't text anyone in rage. I just made lists, cleaned, cleared files, updated locks, quiet moves, smart moves, moves they wouldn't notice until it was too late. My plan wasn't revenge. It was recovery, because what they took from me, my space, my dignity, my right to decide, I was going to take back. Not by force, but by precision. Let them think I was just being Zoe, agreeable, passive, soft-spoken. Let them laugh, let them plan, let them assume. Because the next time they showed up, expecting to take over my life again, they'd find a different woman waiting. Or maybe they wouldn't find me at all. And maybe that would be the loudest message I'd ever send. They'd always underestimated me. That was their first mistake. To them, I was just Zoe, the quiet one, the soft one, the helper. The girl who'd nod along and say yes, even when she meant no. They never looked deeper. They never thought I might be strategic. But what they didn't know, couldn't even imagine, was that I'd planned for this long before the dinner where they announced my brother would be moving into my apartment. They didn't know that I had spoken to a real estate attorney almost a year ago. That when I signed the lease, I signed nothing in my personal name. The apartment wasn't just where I lived. It was an asset when I placed into a legal trust tied to a shell LLC. For liability, for privacy, and yes, for protection, especially from family like mine. My parents had no idea. And why would they? They'd never once asked how I got the place. Never once offered to help. They didn't know I had quietly studied lease law while juggling a day job and late-night freelance gigs. That while they were busy praising my sister's third boyfriend for starting a marketing brand, I was in the library reading property contracts over takeout noodles. The buzzer downstairs? It never said Zoe. I requested it stay blank. For safety, I told the landlord. But truthfully, I didn't want my name on anything they could trace back easily. I knew how my family worked. How quickly they claimed things that weren't theirs when it was convenient. So when they showed up 1 week later, car packed, my brother stepping out like a prince arriving at his castle, they rang and rang. But no one answered. Not me. And definitely not a welcome committee. They called. My phone lit up. First Dad, then Mom, then a string of messages from my brother. We're downstairs. Buzz us in. Where are you? Zoe, stop being ridiculous. But I wasn't being ridiculous. I was being ready. And as they stood outside, pacing, growing restless, I calmly emailed my lawyer. I'd already drafted a statement, something professional, firm, and fully legal. It explained that the residence was under lease protection, not open for third-party occupancy, and any unauthorized attempts to enter would be treated as trespassing. It took exactly 11 minutes for them to get the email from his office. I imagined them huddled around their phones, reading that cold, perfect paragraph. I didn't respond to their calls. I didn't need to, because this wasn't just my home. It was my boundary, my proof, and my quiet power play. And while they laughed over dinner, thinking they could walk into my life and claim a throne that was never theirs, I had already locked the gates. Legally, permanently, and they never saw it coming. The car pulled up right at 9 a.m., just as I knew it would. They were always precise when it suited them, especially when it meant getting something for free. My parents stepped out first, chatting casually like they were going on a picnic. My brother slid out of the back seat, sunglasses on, phone in hand, and not a single bag of his own in sight. The trunk popped open, revealing 3 overstuffed suitcases, a flat-screen TV, and what looked like his old gaming chair crammed diagonally across the back seat. They'd brought it all, as if the move was already a done deal. I watched from the apartment across the street, the one I'd temporarily rented just for today. I sipped my coffee, calm and still, while they approached the building that, unbeknownst to them, no longer had anything to do with me. 3 days earlier, I'd terminated my lease through my LLC and sold the contract rights to a quiet, no-nonsense woman named Ms. Patel. She paid 6 months up front. All legal. All clean. The building manager, Mr. Caldwell, processed the paperwork personally. He even thanked me for being one of the rare tenants who left things better than they found them. So when my parents and brother reached the front door and found it locked, they looked confused for about 10 seconds. That's when Ms. Patel opened the door, her expression unreadable. My mother stepped forward with a big smile. "Oh, hi. We're just here to move in. This is our daughter's place." Ms. Patel blinked. "No, this is my apartment, and I don't know who you are." My brother scoffed. "Can you just move? We're on a schedule." Before she could respond, Mr. Caldwell appeared from the lobby, clipboard in hand, eyebrows raised at the scene forming on the steps. "Is there a problem?" he asked evenly. "Yes," my father jumped in. "My son is moving into this unit. Our daughter, Zoe, she lives here. She said it was fine." Mr. Caldwell flipped through his papers. "Zoe? She no longer lives here. Lease was legally transferred last week. This is Ms. Patel's unit now." The silence that followed was beautiful. I imagined it like a long-held breath no one wanted to admit they were holding. My mother's smile twitched. There must be some mistake. She didn't say anything. "No mistake," Caldwell said. "It's all been handled." Ms. Patel stepped back inside, shutting the door firmly. Caldwell gave a polite nod and followed. And just like that, they were left on the steps, surrounded by suitcases full of entitlement and nowhere to put them. They called me, of course. Over and over. I didn't answer, because this wasn't my moving day. It was theirs, the day they had to move their expectations, their assumptions, and their illusions of control. I watched them from across the street, still sipping, still silent, while their perfect plan unraveled in front of a door that no longer opened for them. By noon, my phone looked like it had caught fire. The first call came from my brother. I let it ring, then another, and another, for missed calls in the span of 5 minutes. Then my mother, then my father. The notifications piled up, text messages, voicemails, a few from my brother's girlfriend, and even one cryptic message from my aunt asking if everything was okay. Everything was perfect. I scrolled through the messages slowly, like flipping pages in a novel I already knew the ending to. My brother's texts came in all caps. "Are you kidding me right now? You said I could move in. This is a joke, right? Answer your phone, Zoe." I hadn't said anything of the sort. I had listened, nodded, never agreed. But entitlement doesn't hear silence. It interprets it as permission. Then came the guilt parade, straight from my mother's phone. "Zoe, sweetheart, this isn't like you. Your brother needs this apartment. Just talk to us. We're family. Family sacrifices." That last one made me pause. Family sacrifices. Funny how that always seemed to mean me giving something up. My space, my peace, my money, my time. Never them. Then my dad's voicemail landed, long, loud, and furious. His voice crackled with that particular tone he saved for when he didn't get his way. "I don't know what game you're playing, Zoe, but this stunt you pulled today, it's selfish. It's shameful. We raised you better than this. Your brother is outside with nowhere to go, and you're watching it happen? You've crossed the line." He hung up without saying goodbye. I stared at my phone for a long time after that. Not because I was hurt, not anymore. I'd already mourned the kind of family I'd never have. What I felt now wasn't sadness. It was clarity, a sense of finally having drawn a line they couldn't step over. I turned off the sound. I let the vibrations hum against the table until they stopped. Then I put my phone down and picked up my book instead. They kept calling. 23 missed calls by sunset. But I didn't reply, because I wasn't angry. I wasn't emotional. I wasn't being dramatic or vengeful. I was just done. Done being the fallback plan. Done being the silent yes. Done pretending like their choices didn't break something every time they made them. They expected me to fold, to apologize, to make things easy again. But I didn't, because for the first time in my life, the one thing they thought I'd never do, I did without a word. I chose myself. It would have been easy for them to call it petty, or cold, maybe even cruel. And honestly, I wouldn't have blamed them, not at first. After all, from their perspective, I blindsided them. I let them pack the car, let them believe what they wanted to believe, let them walk right into a door that no longer belonged to me. I gave them silence where they expected obedience. I let their plan collapse without raising my voice once. But what they'll never understand, and what I no longer need them to, is that this wasn't an act of revenge. This was survival. For years, I twisted myself into versions of the daughter they preferred, the agreeable one, the helper, the one who always made room even when it meant shrinking myself. I let my brother have the last slice, the last say, the last bit of favor, because I thought maybe, just maybe, if I was good enough, quiet enough, useful enough, they'd see me. But when the conversation at dinner turned from casual to controlling, when they announced, not asked, that my apartment was no longer mine, I saw it for what it truly was. Not love, not family, just assumption. They assumed I'd make space because I always had. They assumed I'd smile and sacrifice because that's the version of me they'd groomed into place. The one that didn't argue, didn't draw lines, didn't say no. But that girl doesn't live here anymore. The one who replaced her doesn't make decisions out of spite. She doesn't burn bridges for drama. She sets them down gently and walks away because she's learned that peace is too expensive to lease out to people who treat it like it's theirs by default. I didn't change the lease to punish them. I did it because I was finally strong enough to do what was best for me without needing their permission. I needed to reclaim something they had taken for granted far too long. My autonomy. When I look around now in this quiet space that's mine and mine alone, I don't feel guilt. I don't feel bitterness. I feel light. Lighter than I've felt in years. I think of all the times I said yes when I wanted to say no. All the nights I sacrificed sleep and comfort to accommodate their messes. The money lent, the patience extended, the boundaries trampled. And I realized if I had let them move in, it wouldn't have just been my apartment they took. It would have been me. Again. So I did the only thing I could to stop the cycle. I didn't lash out. I didn't scream. I didn't try to convince them. I chose me. And that's not spite. That's healing. That's growing up enough to know the difference between being kind and being used. Between peacekeeping and self-destruction. Between family and emotional survival. And for the first time, I didn't just survive them. I outgrew them. A year later, and I've never felt more me. It's strange, how much you can change in such a short time. A year ago, I was the quiet one, the one who never raised her voice or her expectations. The one who kept her dreams tucked away behind borrowed spaces, behind family plans, behind the idea that maybe, just maybe, if I was good enough, everything would fall into place. Now, I'm the one people ask for advice. I'm the one who has learned that the biggest investment you can make isn't in your property, but in yourself. The apartment I once thought of as a place to hide, a place that became a symbol of how small I felt in my family's eyes, has turned into a source of freedom. It's no longer just my home. It's an income stream, a rental property that pays for itself and more. It's not just a space I rent out. It's proof that I'm capable of much more than I ever allowed myself to believe. Funny how people only see your worth when you stop asking them to define it. I can't tell you how many times I've had to turn away calls from my family, each one laced with frustration and confusion. At first, they were worried, wondering why I didn't answer, why I wasn't coming to dinner, why I hadn't returned their repeated offers to talk things through. But now it's different. They still don't get it. They still don't see what I've built. They think I'm still that same quiet girl who'd bend and break for them, the one who'd let things go, who would always forgive without asking for anything in return. But I'm not her anymore, and I don't need them to understand that. For the first time in my life, I have peace. True peace. The kind that doesn't come from compliance or from keeping the peace at all costs. It comes from standing my ground, from setting boundaries, from claiming what's mine. And that's what my apartment represents. It's not about real estate, not really. It's about taking ownership of my space, my decisions, my life. It's about setting rules that work for me, not the ones that were handed to me by anyone else. Do they still call me selfish? Yes. Do they still ask why I haven't forgiven them, why I'm so distant? Absolutely. But it doesn't bother me anymore. Because I know now that the real distance isn't between us physically. It's emotional, and that distance is necessary. It's the space I needed to grow into someone who values herself enough to stop making excuses for others. I'm thriving now, more financially secure than I've ever been, more emotionally balanced, and more confident in my own skin than I ever thought possible. The apartment? It's just a piece of the puzzle, a reflection of the bigger picture. For the first time, I'm no longer defined by their expectations. And I don't need them to understand that. Because for the first time, I finally understand myself.